You're broke, you're lonely, and the world treats you like you don't even exist. Say it out loud, accept it, because the man who refuses to face his reality will never have the power to change it. Most people in your situation fall into one of two paths. Either they lie to themselves, quietly repeating, "Things will improve, I just need time," or they shut down completely, distracting themselves, numbing the discomfort through scrolling, drinking, or escaping into anything that helps them avoid the truth. Both paths are traps. Both are slow graves, chosen willingly by men who prioritized comfort over truth. Machiavelli never wrote for comfortable men. He wrote for those who had nothing and were hungry enough to build everything. He spoke to the ignored, the underestimated, the man sitting exactly where you are right now. And his first lesson was not about manipulation or tactics. It was about clarity. You cannot play the game if you refuse to see the board. So here it is, clearly. You are at the bottom, your resources are limited, your network is weak, and the world is cold and indifferent. That is not cruelty, that is reality. And reality, no matter how harsh it feels, is the only weapon that never fails you. Part 2. The Machiavellian Mindset Shift. This is where most men collapse. Not because of their situation, but because of how they interpret it. They see being broke as a final judgment. They see loneliness as something permanent. They see being overlooked as proof that they are not enough. That single mental mistake, misreading temporary conditions as a fixed identity, traps men in the same place for years, sometimes decades, wondering why nothing ever changes. Machiavelli understood something modern self-help avoids because it's too harsh, too direct, too honest. Your current position is not your identity. It is your test. The world is not punishing you. It is filtering you. It separates those who break under pressure from those who sharpen because of it. Every unpaid bill, every empty room you walk into, every missed opportunity is not proof that life is against you. It is information. It is feedback from a system that rewards adaptation and destroys complaint. The Machiavellian mind does not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" That is a weak question. It asks, "What is this situation teaching me and how do I use it?" That shift alone is more valuable than any motivational speech, course, or mentor, because when you stop viewing struggle as punishment and start seeing it as raw material, your entire psychology reorganizes itself around power instead of pain. You become harder to break, harder to understand, harder to predict. You become the man who walks into a room with nothing and still commands presence, because something in his eyes tells the room, this man has walked through fire and decided to become it. That transformation begins in the mind, long before it reflects in your money, your circle, or your reputation. Drop "I am the fire" in the comments right now if this is hitting different. The first thing, master your silence. The first thing you must do immediately, starting today, not tomorrow, not later, is to control your silence. Most broke, overlooked, lonely men share one destructive habit. They talk too much. They explain themselves to people who do not respect them. They defend their dreams to people who never believed in them. They reveal their struggles to people who secretly enjoy seeing them stuck. They announce their plans before they have the strength to protect them. And in doing this, they hand their enemies, and yes, you have enemies, even among those who smile at you, the exact information needed to keep them small. Machiavelli said, "The lion cannot protect itself from traps, and the fox cannot defend itself from wolves." You must become both. And the fox's greatest weapon is not intelligence, it is concealment. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not insecurity. Silence is a weapon most men never learn to use because their ego is too loud, too desperate for validation, too hungry to be understood. But here is the truth. Nobody needs to understand your journey. Nobody needs to know your next move. Nobody needs access to your struggle, your work, or your progress. The moment you stop explaining yourself, everything shifts. People begin to wonder about you. They start filling the gaps with their imagination. And imagination, when it lacks information, often creates something far more powerful than reality. Your silence becomes mystery. Your restraint becomes reputation. The man who speaks only when necessary, who reveals nothing too early, who lets results speak for him, is seen as dangerous in the best way. He is seen as someone operating on a different level. Cut unnecessary conversations. Leave the group chats that drain you. Stop performing your progress for people who have no role in your success. Go silent. Go unseen. Focus on the work. Because silence, when used correctly, is louder than anything you could ever say. The second thing, eliminate weak alliances. The second move you must make immediately is to look around you. Truly look and evaluate every relationship in your life with the cold, calculated mindset of a strategist, not the emotional lens of someone afraid of being alone. Because here is a truth that will hurt before it frees you. The wrong people in your life are not just weight, they are sabotage. They don't need to be evil or intentionally against you. They just need to be comfortable with mediocrity, and their comfort will quietly become your limit if you allow their presence to define your environment. Machiavelli made this brutally clear. A leader surrounded by weak, flattering, self-serving people will make weak, flattering, self-serving decisions. The people closest to you shape your sense of what is possible. And if those closest to you have never built anything, never sacrificed anything, never pushed beyond the ordinary, then their silent influence is convincing you every day that ordinary is enough for you as well. This is not arrogance. This is not about abandoning real connection or loyalty. This is about understanding one of the core laws of power. Your associations define your reputation, your ceiling, and your reflection all at once. Every person you spend time with is either raising your standards or lowering them. There is no neutral ground. No relationship exists without influence. Every conversation sharpens you or weakens you. Every environment expands your thinking or limits it. So here is what you must do with surgical precision. Identify relationships built only on history and habit, the ones that exist because neither of you has had the courage to outgrow them. Identify the people who respond to your ambition with sarcasm, your silence with suspicion, and your growth with quiet resentment disguised as concern. These people are not your circle, they are your trap. And then, without drama, without long explanations, without needing their approval, begin creating distance. You don't destroy bridges unnecessarily. Machiavelli warned against creating enemies without reason. You don't lash out unnecessarily. Instead, you redirect your time, your energy, and your presence toward people who are building, people who are driven, people whose standards force you to rise instead of allowing you to remain where you are. Because the man who is broke, lonely, and overlooked is rarely there because of bad luck alone. More often, he is there because he stayed loyal to a circle that was never loyal to his potential. Change the circle, and you begin, quietly but powerfully, to change everything else. Drop "new circle, new level" in the comments if you already know exactly who you need to distance yourself from starting today. The third thing, build an unreadable identity. The third thing you must do immediately is stop being predictable. Stop being easy to read. Stop being the type of man people can define in one sentence, dismiss in one glance, or place into a small box that justifies ignoring you. Because here is what most overlooked men fail to understand. They are not ignored because they lack value. They are ignored because they have made themselves too obvious, too easy to categorize, and therefore too easy to underestimate. When people can fully predict you, they stop paying attention to you. You become background. You become noise. You become the man whose presence is noticed, but whose absence means nothing. And in a world driven by perception, by impression, by the silent battle of who commands attention and who chases it, being readable is being powerless. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous men in any room are not the loudest, not the most aggressive, not even the most outwardly confident. The most dangerous men are the ones no one can fully understand, the ones who smile without revealing their thoughts, the ones who listen more than they speak, observe more than they react, and act only when the moment is perfectly aligned. These men are not mysterious for vanity. They are unreadable by intention because they understand that information is power, and the less people know about your next move, your emotions, your intentions, and your true capability, the less they can use against you. So how do you build an unreadable identity when you're starting from nothing? You begin by separating your internal world from your external behavior. What you feel inside, the frustration, the hunger, the doubt, the ambition that belongs to you. It is intelligence. It is fuel. It is not a show for people who have not earned the right to witness your process. You stop reacting emotionally in public, not because you don't feel, but because you understand that reactions expose you, and exposure gives people access to your weaknesses. You develop stillness, not the stillness of surrender, but the stillness of a man deeply focused, rooted in purpose, disciplined in execution, someone who cannot be shaken by the noise around him. You become selective about what you celebrate, what you reveal, and what plans you allow others to see before they are already in motion. You build range, the ability to be warm when it benefits you, cold when necessary, and neutral when neither serves a purpose. You stop wearing your ambition like a plea for validation, and you start carrying it like certainty. Because the unreadable man is the uncontrollable man, and the uncontrollable man is the one the world cannot stop, cannot manipulate, cannot hold down, no matter how broke, how lonely, or how overlooked he once was. The transformation of identity does not begin with appearance or speech, though those will follow. It begins with the decision to stop performing for the world and start preparing in silence, in discipline, in focused intent, like a man becoming something the world never expected. The fourth thing, weaponize your adversity. The fourth thing you must do immediately is stop treating your struggles like wounds and start treating them like weapons. This is one of the most counterintuitive ideas in the entire Machiavellian comeback code, and also one of the most powerful. While others in your position are busy grieving what they lost, resenting what they never had, and exhausting themselves trying to explain their pain to people who aren't listening, you will take a different path. You will extract value from your adversity. You will turn it into intelligence, into strength, into advantage, into deep self-awareness that comfortable men will never have because they were never forced to develop it. Understand this clearly. Every great man in history who built something meaningful, something lasting, something that outlived criticism and opposition, did not succeed despite his suffering. He succeeded because of it. The suffering was the training. The hardship was the classroom. The phase of being broke, alone, and overlooked was not a barrier to greatness. It was the blueprint for it. Machiavelli himself was arrested, tortured, and exiled from the city he had dedicated his life to. He lost everything: his role, his influence, his freedom, his relevance. And it was in that darkness, in that humiliation, in that complete loss of power that he wrote The Prince. One of the most influential political works in Western history was not created in comfort, not at the height of success, but at the lowest point of a man who chose to think instead of collapse, who chose to analyze instead of surrender, who chose to turn exile into education. That is the Machiavellian model of adversity, not fake positivity, not denying the pain, not performing strength for an audience that needs to see you unbreakable, but the cold, disciplined, almost ruthless habit of extracting every lesson, every advantage, every insight from whatever situation you are currently trapped in. Your financial struggle is building a level of resourcefulness that wealthy men never develop because they can always pay their way out of problems. Your loneliness is teaching you self-reliance, the ability to entertain yourself, and the strength to sit alone with your thoughts without discomfort, a skill so rare in a world addicted to distraction that it alone will separate you from most of your competition. Being overlooked is teaching you how to observe without being seen, how to study people, systems, and dynamics from the outside, how to understand rooms you have not yet entered, so that when you finally step inside, you already know exactly where to stand, who to approach, and how to move. Every scar becomes direction. Every failure becomes a plan. Every humiliation becomes information about the gap between where you are and where your discipline must take you. The man who turns his adversity into a weapon does not become bitter, he becomes accurate. He does not close himself off, he becomes strategic. He does not carry pain like weight, he carries it like a blade, sharp and hidden, used only when necessary. So stop apologizing for your struggle. Stop shrinking around men who have never been tested the way you have. Stop comparing yourself to people who started from easier conditions. Your adversity is not something to hide. It is your edge. It is the fire that shaped your real character, and no man raised in comfort can compete with the strength built through suffering. The world broke you open. Now you decide what fills that space. And if you choose correctly, if you choose power over self-pity, precision over pain, and strategy over surrender, what grows from that space will be something the world never expected. Drop "My struggle is my strategy" in the comments right now and mean it, because from this point forward, that is exactly what it becomes. The fifth thing, engineer your reputation before you have resources. The fifth and final move you must make immediately is to understand that reputation is not something that comes after success. It is something you build deliberately, strategically, and with intention long before success shows up. This is what separates men who wait to be recognized from men who make themselves impossible to ignore. And it is one of the most underrated advantages available to a man who currently has nothing, because building a reputation costs nothing, requires no capital, and yet compounds with the same force as money when used correctly. Most men assume reputation follows achievement, that first you build wealth, success, connections, and then people begin to see you differently. And while that holds some truth on the surface, the Machiavellian mind understands something deeper. Perception comes before reality in almost every interaction that matters. People decide how to treat you, what opportunities to offer, whether to respect you or dismiss you, long before they have proof of your ability. They decide based on how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you respond under pressure, what you tolerate, what you reject, and the silent message your presence sends about how you view yourself. Which means, even now, broke, overlooked, working in silence with no visible results, you still have the power to start building a reputation that opens doors before you even reach them. You begin by becoming relentlessly consistent in your standards, not your circumstances, your standards. A man can have no money and still refuse disrespect. He can lack resources and still move with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly where he is going. Consistency in how you treat your word, your time, and the few relationships that matter builds a reputation for integrity that money alone can never buy. Second, you understand the power of association and positioning. Machiavelli knew a man is judged heavily by the company he keeps and the causes he aligns with. You do not need money to place yourself near excellence. You need intention. The books you study, the conversations you pursue, the environments you choose, the knowledge you build and share, all of these signal your level to those who are paying attention, and the right people are always watching. Third, you let restraint speak for you. In a world full of noise, opinions, and constant performance, the man who moves with quiet focus and speaks only with purpose becomes instantly different. Your silence when provoked becomes respected. Your patience when opportunities appear becomes admired. Your refusal to celebrate too early or collapse publicly builds a reputation for emotional strength that people trust with serious responsibility, serious money, serious partnerships, real power. Because at the end of every opportunity, every alliance, every deal, people are not just betting on your skill or intelligence. They are betting on your character. They are asking, directly or indirectly, can this man remain who he appears to be under pressure? And the man who has spent time building a reputation for consistency, discipline, restraint, and quiet strength answers that question before it is even asked. He enters the room, and the answer is already yes. So begin now, not when you have the money, the status, the validation. Begin now, exactly where you are, with exactly what you have. Carry yourself like a man already moving towards something inevitable. Treat your word like currency in a world where it is rare. Build the reputation first and watch how reality eventually has no choice but to align with it. Because the world does not reward the most deserving, it rewards the most prepared, and preparation always begins long before anyone is paying attention, or at least before they realize they are. Part 8. The dark psychology of the comeback. How power truly works. Now we go deeper. Now we move past surface-level motivation and step into the cold, uncomfortable, rarely discussed structure of how power actually functions in the real world. Because if you are serious about your comeback, if you are fully committed to becoming untouchable, then you cannot afford to hold a naive view of human nature. You must learn to see people clearly, not with bitterness, not with cynicism, not with the wounded lens of someone who has been hurt too often, but with the sharp, steady clarity of a man who has decided that truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is more valuable than the illusions most people hide inside. Here is the reality Machiavelli understood long before modern psychology explained it. People do not respond mainly to who you are. They respond to what you represent, how you make them feel about themselves, and most importantly, what they believe you are capable of. This is not manipulation in a dishonest sense. This is the foundation of human interaction, and ignoring it does not make you virtuous. It makes you weak. Every room you enter, every conversation you have, every relationship you build operates on multiple layers at once. On the surface, there are words, politeness, visible actions, and stated intentions. But beneath that surface, where real decisions are made, where alliances are formed, where influence is distributed, there is a constant, silent, unconscious negotiation happening between everyone involved. And that negotiation revolves around one central factor: status. Who brings more value into the interaction? Who risks more? Who controls outcomes? Who needs the interaction more? Who can walk away more easily? Who operates from abundance? And who operates from need? These questions are never spoken out loud, but they are always being answered. They are answered by how you walk into a room, by how you hold eye contact, by how you react when challenged, by what you choose to laugh at and what you refuse to entertain, by your tone, your pace, your stillness, your control, and whether your energy seeks validation or reflects self-containment. The man rebuilding himself must understand one critical truth: desperation is seen long before it is heard. People detect need the way animals detect fear. And the moment your energy reveals that you need approval, opportunity, or validation more than you value your own standards, you lose the negotiation before it even begins. This is why inner work is not separate from strategy. It is the base of it. You cannot display power externally if it does not exist internally. You cannot imitate the presence of a man who is truly detached from outcomes, who is committed to his path regardless of recognition, who has built an internal structure so strong and purposeful that external approval becomes optional, never necessary. Dark psychology also teaches you to look beyond surface intentions. When someone offers help, consider what they might expect in return. When someone praises you publicly, pay attention to how they speak about you privately. When someone claims they want nothing from you, observe what position they slowly place themselves in to gain something later. This is not paranoia. Paranoia is uncontrolled fear. This is awareness, deliberate, focused, strategic awareness. It is the discipline of seeing the full structure of every interaction so you are never blindsided, never manipulated without realizing it, never guided into a situation that benefits someone else at your expense. Machiavelli did not teach men to become ruthless for the sake of cruelty. He taught them to become aware, to recognize the game that is always being played whether you choose to acknowledge it or not. Because the game does not stop for those who ignore it, it simply uses them. The man who understands dark psychology does not use it to exploit the weak or to build power on the suffering of others. That is the path of a tyrant, and tyrants always fall, without exception, because power built on fear demands constant control and creates more enemies than allies. Instead, he uses it as a lens, a way to read situations with precision, to move through relationships intelligently, to guard himself against manipulation, and to position himself in every environment so that he adds value while simultaneously advancing his own vision. He becomes the most useful man in any room, not out of desperation to be needed, but because strategically, applied usefulness is one of the oldest and most reliable paths to influence ever known, and influence, built quietly over time, strengthened through consistent action and deep self-awareness, is a currency that outlasts money, outlasts fame, and survives every temporary advantage that luck can offer. This is the dark psychology of the comeback. Not cruelty, not deception for its own sake, but clarity, raw, unfiltered Machiavellian clarity about how the world truly operates, used to build something real, something lasting, something that cannot be taken from a man who was forged in hardship and chose, at every critical moment, to remain standing. Part 9. The Waiting Game. Why timing is the most dangerous weapon you possess. There is one weapon that every great strategist in history has understood, respected, and mastered above almost everything else. And it is the one weapon that costs nothing, requires no special talent, no inherited advantage, no connections, no money. Yet it is the very weapon that impatient, overlooked, and emotionally driven men waste without ever realizing its true value. That weapon is timing. Machiavelli described fortune as a river. When it overflows, it destroys everything in its path, and those who have not prepared structures to control it are simply carried away. But the man who has used his quiet periods to build those structures, who has spent his invisible seasons preparing, sharpening, and positioning himself, does not fear the flood. He directs it, he uses it, he stands firm when everything else collapses. This is the Machiavellian view of patience, not passive waiting, not the resignation of a man who has given up control, but active, intense, disciplined patience. The patience of a man building in silence while others seek attention, accumulating skill while others collect excuses, understanding with absolute clarity that the right move made at the wrong time is just as destructive as no move at all. The comeback was never a sprint. It was always a campaign, long, calculated, driven by intelligence, executed with the precision of a man who no longer measures himself against other people's timelines, but against his own potential. Every day you remain unseen is a day others are busy performing for validation they will never turn into real power. Every night you spend sharpening your abilities, expanding your thinking, building your reputation, and strengthening your mind is a night the unprepared spend wondering why nothing changes. Your silence is not your punishment, it is your preparation. And when your moment comes, and it will come for any man who prepares with this level of discipline, you will not enter it uncertain or unready. You will step into it like a man who has been preparing for it all along, who has been watching, building, and waiting, fully aware that this moment was always going to arrive. Part 10. The Untouchable Man, your final directive. You have reached the end of this code, but understand this clearly. This is not the end. This is the beginning of the most important phase of your life. And it will not be written with words, not with promises, not with loud ambition that impresses no one who truly matters. It will be written through action, discipline, silence, and the relentless forward movement of a man who has finally decided that his situation does not define him. His past does not control him, and the opinion of a world that ignored him has no authority over where he is going. You entered this video broke, alone, and unseen. And if you truly absorbed what was said, not just listened, but allowed it to shift something real inside you, then you leave as something fundamentally different. You leave as a man with a code. Master your silence. Remove weak alliances. Build an unreadable identity. Turn your adversity into a weapon. Create your reputation before success arrives. Understand the psychology of power. And above all, respect timing, trust the process, honor the wait, because the untouchable man is not born. He is built. Built in darkness, in silence, in struggle, where every weaker version of him was stripped away until only the core remained. That unshakable center of purpose that no situation can break and no person can take away. The world will never hand you power. It never has. And it never will. Power is taken quietly, strategically, and without hesitation by men who understand the game deeply enough to play it better than anyone around them. And that man is you, starting now, starting today. Not the version of you that was waiting and broken, but the version of you that is awake, prepared, and already in motion. Drop "I am untouchable" in the comments right now. Say it with conviction. Say it like you mean it, because this is not a wish, it is a declaration. And when a prepared man makes a declaration, it has a way of turning into reality. If this video reached something real inside you, hit the like button, subscribe to Machiavellian Galaxy, and turn on notifications, because what comes next will sharpen everything you learned today even further. The code continues, and so do you.